Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I hope all of you are doing good. My name is Himanshi and I welcome you all to my YouTube channel Science Simplified. In this lecture, we are going to talk about the topic nitrogen cycle, which is a very important and interesting topic of grade 8 science. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now, as you all know that the earth is finite, right? And the matter has to be recycled and it has to be reused. It means the matter or the atoms that are right now in you or in me, they were a part of, let's say, the soil or the air or even the rock, right? So it means the matter has to be recycled, right? Now this recycling of matter or the recycling of different nutrients is known as the nutrient cycle. Understood? The recycling of matter is known as nutrient cycle. Now there are different types of nutrient cycles. So many nutrient cycles are there. There is phosphorus cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle. You already have learned about water cycle, right? In today's session, we will focus on nitrogen cycle. All right. Now, what is nitrogen cycle? It is the process by which the element nitrogen is used around the ecosystem. So basically it is how the nitrogen is used around the ecosystem, how it is recycled, how it is reused. All right. Now before we talk about nitrogen cycle, first we need to know why nitrogen is important. Why is this nitrogen cycle so crucial? So let me tell you that nitrogen is not only important for plants, but it is important for all the living beings. All right. Now, what do plants do with nitrogen? What do they make with nitrogen? Plants require nitrogen to prepare chlorophyll. Now, you already know and you already understand how important this chlorophyll molecule is, right? So the whole process of photosynthesis is dependent upon the chlorophyll. Without nitrogen, no chlorophyll. Without chlorophyll, no photosynthesis. It means none of the organisms can survive, right? Because we all are directly or indirectly dependent upon the plants, right? Now, where else do they use nitrogen? They use nitrogen to prepare different proteins. There are different proteins in the plants, right? Different nucleic acids, different biomolecules are there. So all are prepared by nitrogen only. Now these plants again are in turn eaten by the animals, right? So it means the proteins that are there in your body, they are also made up of the nitrogen. So for the production of protein, again for the protein that is there in your body, nitrogen is needed, right? So we can say that nitrogen is important for all the living beings, right? Plants, animals, every other living being, right? Now, what is so important about nitrogen cycle? Why is it so crucial? Do you know the nitrogen gas, the atmospheric nitrogen which we call, it is present in 78%. That is 78% of our atmosphere is nitrogen gas. Yes, it's a lot, right? A very huge amount of nitrogen. But you know what? You know what the thing is? We are not able to utilize this 78% of nitrogen gas because the form in which this nitrogen gas is present on the earth, that form cannot be used by us. It cannot be utilized by us. It can't even be utilized by the plants, right? So now we need somebody to help us, right? Let's see who comes here to help us. Before we talk about the hero that is going to help us to fix this atmospheric nitrogen into the usable form of nitrogen, let us first see why this atmospheric nitrogen cannot be utilized by us in this form. So in atmospheric form, the nitrogen is present as N2, okay? It is highly unreactive. Why is it unreactive? Because it is present in the form of these triple bonds. So we can say that these two nitrogen atoms, they are kind of stuck together. Okay, they cannot be broken easily, and this is the reason why they are highly unreactive. Now, luckily, we have some bacteria that can break this triple bond of nitrogen. Yes, they can break this triple bond of nitrogen, and they can fix this atmospheric nitrogen into the soil so that this nitrogen can be utilized by different living organisms. All right, so let us talk about these bacteria. Now these bacteria, they are known as nitrogen fixing bacteria. Can any of you recall the examples of nitrogen fixing bacteria? I can give you a hint. So they are present in the root nodules of leguminous plants. Any idea? Can you give me just one example? Okay, what you can do is you can just write down in the comment. Okay, I'm gonna check the comments. There is a very classic example of nitrogen fixing bacteria. Don't forget to mention the name of that bacteria in the comment section. All right, so what does this bacteria do? It breaks this triple bond. Okay, it breaks this triple bond and it adds hydrogen. So this N2, it becomes NH3. What is this NH3 called? This is known as ammonia. We call it ammonia. All right, and this whole process, this fixing of nitrogen, this fixing of atmospheric nitrogen into the soil so that it can be used by the living organisms is termed as nitrogen fixation. And this nitrogen fixation is the very first step of our nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen fixation, it is the process in which the nitrogen from the air, let me write it for you people, nitrogen from the air is fixed into the soil so that it can be utilized by different living organisms. All right, now apart from these nitrogen fixing bacteria, there is one more thing. There is a process, there is a phenomenon by which nitrogen can be fixed into the soil. This atmospheric nitrogen, it can be fixed into the soil, and this is known as physical fixation of nitrogen. Why physical? Because there is no bacteria involved over here. So this nitrogen can be fixed by two processes. One, by the action of nitrogen fixing bacteria. What do? They break the triple bond of nitrogen. They break the triple bond between the two nitrogen atom. They add hydrogen into them, and they make a nitrogenous compound which is known as ammonia. Right? Now the other process is physical fixation of nitrogen. Now how does it happen? Let me tell you. So the nitrogen in the atmosphere is present as N2, in which the two nitrogen atoms, they are held tightly together. Like I've told you that there is a triple bond, right? That's the reason why they are held tightly together. Something like this. Okay. Now what happens? The lightning, it splits splits the nitrogen molecule, and each nitrogen atom now can combine, this nitrogen atom can now combine with the oxygen that is present in the air to form nitric oxide. All right, clear? Nitric oxide, which is known as NO. All right, NO. Now this NO further combines with the rainwater, that is H2O, to form nitric acid, which is known as HNO3. So this is known as nitric acid. All right. Alright, so this nitric acid will fall on the earth or on the soil. Alright, so that's how the atmospheric nitrogen, it has been brought to the soil in the form of HNO3. So this is also nitrogen fixation, right? But this is physical fixation because no living being is involved over here. Alright, nitrogen is fixed only because of the lightning. Clear? So this is called physical fixation of the nitrogen. So we have basically two ways by which nitrogen can be fixed. One, by the action of nitrogen fixing bacteria, and second, by physical fixation of nitrogen, basically by the lightning. All right, are we clear? Let's now move ahead. So we are done with the first step. First step, that is nitrogen fixation, right? Nitrogen from the air is fixed into the soil in the form of ammonia, right? Nitrogen fixing bacteria, they convert N2 atmospheric nitrogen into NH3, which is also known as ammonia. All right. Now this ammonia can be taken up by the plant. It can be utilized by the plant to make different biomolecules like protein, nucleic acid, different biomolecules, right? But not all of the ammonia is assimilated, because too much ammonia can be toxic for the plant. Alright, so sometimes plants prefer to assimilate other nitrogen compounds called nitrates. So here comes our next step, that is nitrification. Now this nitrification is done by another kind of bacteria, which is known as nitrifying bacteria. Now what do they do? Let's talk about them. So basically these nitrifying bacteria, they add oxygen to ammonia. All right, so let's say that this is ammonia, right? This is NH3 ammonia, right? So basically they add oxygen to make NO3 minus, which is known as nitrate. All right, so what do nitrifying bacteria do? They convert ammonia into nitrate. So we can say nitrifying bacteria, they convert ammonia into nitrates, and then again this nitrate can be utilized, it can be assimilated by the plant. All right, now once this nitrate or the nitrogen is utilized by the plant, once it is assimilated by the plant to prepare DNA, RNA, or we can say different proteins, nucleic acids, right? The nitrogen keeps moving through food webs into different organisms, right? For example, the plant will be eaten by, plants are producers, right? So they will be eaten by other consumers. So eventually the nitrogen will move from one organism to another through the food webs. All right, now we all know that eventually all living beings are going to die, right? They will die and they'll decompose, right? So this returns the nitrogen back to the soil in form of ammonia, and this process is known as ammonification. All right, what is ammonification? It is return of nitrogen back to the soil in the form of ammonia. All right, now actually what's happening here now, we are forgetting a very important step over here. Now in order to complete the cycle, what is cycle? What goes around comes around, right? So in order to complete the cycle, the nitrogen gas has to be returned back to the air. It has to be returned from where it has come from, right? So it has to be returned back to the air, and this is done by denitrifying bacteria, and this process is termed as denitrification. So again we have a bacteria which is known as denitrifying bacteria. These are special bacteria, all right, and we call them denitrifying bacteria. What do? They return the nitrogen back into the air in the same form, that is N2. All right, so they convert nitrates into the atmospheric nitrogen. All right, is that clear? So now the whole nitrogen cycle is completed. Now we'll quickly summarize whatever we have learned till now. So the nitrogen gas, the atmospheric nitrogen, it by the action of nitrogen fixing bacteria is converted into ammonia, and this process is known as nitrogen fixation. So let me just write it here for you. We call it nitrogen fixation. The atmospheric nitrogen is being fixed into the soil in the form of NH3, that is ammonia. Now this nitrogen fixation can also be done by another process which is known as lightning, and we call it, what do we call it? Physical fixation of nitrogen. Physical fixation of nitrogen. Alright. Now this NH3, this ammonia, it can be used by the plant to prepare various biomolecules, and this process is termed as assimilation. Now, as I told you, not all of the ammonia is utilized by the plant. Some of the ammonia is converted, because there are many plants which prefer using nitrogen in the form of nitrates, right? So here comes another kind of bacteria. What do we call them? Nitrifying bacteria, right? So here again we have nitrifying bacteria which are going to convert this ammonia into which form? Into nitrates, right? So here the conversion of NH3 into NO3 minus, right? Nitrates. Clear? This process is known as nitrification. Right? Now, this nitrogen, right, that is a nitrate in the form of nitrate, it is taken up by the plants, and then these plants are then in turn eaten by animals, right? And then finally these animals are going to die, they're going to decompose, right? So that is how the nitrogen is going to come back into the soil, right? Now, again, the nitrogen that is there in the soil, it has to be brought back into the atmosphere, right? It has to be brought back into the air, and this is done by the process which is known as denitrification, right? And again, this denitrification, the task of denitrification is done by, again, very very important class of bacteria which is known as denitrifying bacteria. These bacteria, all right, we call them denitrifying bacteria, and this completes our nitrogen cycle, right? I hope you people have understood the nitrogen cycle. Now, just in case if you people have any query, something that you would like to ask me, you can write in the comment section. I will definitely take up your queries. All right. Now, thank you so much for watching.